About 15 years ago, on a cold, rainy fall night, I stood on the corner outside my local running club. I leaned against the cold concrete wall, trying to blend in with the other runners. My heart raced, and my inner voice became louder and louder, shouting at me to turn around and go home. My ego fearing the worst. I'd be the biggest, I'd be the slowest, I'd be left behind. I was terrified. Although full of fear, I kept my feet firmly planted on the sidewalk as I watched the real runners mill about, talking about their latest runs, laughing and high-fiving one another. I stood and watched with cynicism as my sense of not belonging overran my mind. Just as my class was about to start, I ducked into the club at the very last minute, trying to look self-assured. I headed to the back where a chalkboard and benches were set up for the Tuesday night Learn to Run 5K clinic. I sat down on one of the benches, nervously fiddling with my shoes, until a woman decked out in running gear stood before us and introduced herself as our run leader. As I shifted my gaze from my shoes towards her, I was shocked to find that she was a plus-size athlete. Her name was Chris, and to me, she was a rock star, she was an icon, and she was everything I'd been looking for many years. This was the first time I'd seen a woman of size as a runner, and it was certainly the first time I'd seen a woman of size in fitness leadership. Suddenly, my fear and anxiety melted away because for once, I was amongst someone who looked like me. Over the next 12 weeks, Chris trained me to run that 5K distance. She trained me to tap into my inner athlete, and she trained me to recognize that a diverse range of bodies are capable of athletic achievement, and to me, that was life-changing. For the first time, my participation in exercise wasn't for the caloric expenditure to lose weight. It was because it roused something inside of me that had been buried by years and years of rejecting my body, my inner athlete. Until this point, I didn't know that bigger bodies could also be athletic bodies. It never occurred to me because it had never been shown to me. I'd been seeking fitness inspiration and motivation for years, but I could never find a representation of myself. I looked here, and I looked here. But I always came up empty. Amongst these 3 fitness magazines are over 1,000 pages of glossy advertising, and not one of them represent a body even remotely close to mine. The word athlete, as defined by Oxford, means a person who is proficient in fitness and sport. Proficient. Oxford doesn't mention age, gender, race, or size, yet our society has sold us its own beliefs and idealism around what athleticism looks like, and this has caused a segregation around what bodies are invited into the fitness arena and what bodies are not. Our fitness culture generally celebrates only one fitness ideal: chiseled, youthful, mostly Caucasian, and lean, leaving millions of people on the sidelines of fitness and sport. That cold, rainy night, Chris ignited possibility, and I decided that I was no longer going to be benched, and that my waiting on the sidelines was over. There would be no more tomorrows until I was thinner, fitter, faster, or stronger. My time was now in this body. Since then, athleticism has shown me that it can transform the lives of people of all shapes and sizes. You see, it's not our bodies that hold the bondage. It's our minds. And we know this because we see people competing in Ironman, summiting Mount Everest, and ultra-marathoners participating in the longest foot race in history, totaling 3,100 long miles. The human body has limitless capabilities and will do anything we train it to do. However, our minds are more complex. Our minds generally take hold of what we see. We've all heard the saying, seeing is believing. But what if you can't see yourself? When I realized that my body was virtually invisible in the mass media landscape before me, I interpreted this as uninvited, and that athletic victory is not in my realm of possibility. But today, I know differently. Human beings are visual creatures, often needing evidence that it can be done in the face of our fears. It's why historical pioneers have greatly impacted us with their actions that have shown us what is possible. It's why aviation took off in 1903 when the Wright brothers took to the skies. They showed the world what was possible. It's why the entire perception of the world shifted when we heard the words, "The eagle has landed," when Neil Armstrong first set foot on the moon. This catapulted our belief system into a whole new dimension of what is humanly possible. And it's why, on a different scale, I became a runner. I realized becoming a runner isn't as grand as landing on the moon, but it forever changed my personal history in such a profound way. When I saw Chris defying the stereotypes of what runners look like and her courage to represent a new paradigm in fitness and sport, it told me what was possible for me. Yet sadly, it's why still so many people wait on the sidelines of fitness, because representation showing them it can be done is still so scarce in our conventional mediums. Well, I finished that 5K clinic, and I went on to run many more. Then I started running the 10K distance, and then I started coaching people to run their own race. The moment that I crossed the finish line with my first group, I realized that I had arrived and that this is my calling. I'd become so driven and passionate to share my athletic experiences with others that I left behind my successful career. I acquired all my fitness certifications, and I opened a revolutionary fitness business dedicated to the plus-size community. Since then, I've trained and interacted with thousands of plus-size people through athletic training camps, running programs, and surfing retreats. I've continued on my own athletic path. I've taken my run to the half marathon distance. I've entered long-distance cycling events, and I've fallen into my newfound love of the sport of triathlon. The powerful turn of events from the girl standing outside of the running group, terrified, to standing before you today on this stage, leads me to this. Representation is an extremely powerful thing. Seeing yourself represented has the power to unequivocally change lives. So when it comes to excluding certain bodies from the health and fitness mainstream, it becomes a social injustice. While our society pressures larger-bodied people to get with the program, we fail to set people up for success. We fail to invite everybody into the game. Founding president of the White House Project, Marie Wilson, says, "You cannot be what you cannot see." Well, it's time to change that story. It's time to fearlessly implement social and cultural change for every single body. I joined Chris in this movement, and I took to the streets to show people that it can be done, to give people the opportunity to adapt and shift and think again about what their bodies are capable of. And not just to change the story for individuals, but to change the story as a society. This isn't the first time in history we've changed our story in sport and fitness. We as human beings can adapt and change. We know we can because we've seen it done before. Catherine Switzer is best known as the woman who in 1967 challenged the all-male tradition at the Boston Marathon. She was the first woman to enter and run the event. Her participation caused an uproar and worldwide notoriety when a race official tried to forcibly remove her from the run. This image was captured and flashed the globe and has since become one of Time Life's 100 images that have changed the world. Since then, Switzer has run 39 marathons and is still running today. Her participation in the Boston Marathon showed women it could be done. And now hundreds of thousands of women enjoy the Boston Marathon. It's also not the first time we've seen the world of sport push back against body size only to rescind. At the age of 16, Taylor Townsend was the top junior tennis player in the world. Yet in 2012, the US Tennis Association asked Townsend to sit out of the Junior US Open due to her weight. They were reported as saying that they had concerns for her health and development as a long-term player and wanted her to focus on fitness. After much backlash and controversy, Townsend's mother paid her way to the event, where she played like a champion. Since then, she has joined the professional ranks in tennis and has played some of the biggest names at the US Open. Seeing is most definitely believing. She was able to change the minds of an association that's been seeing the game of tennis only one way since 1881. Our humanity shows us that we can pivot and change our views. So when it comes to larger bodies, I believe that we can drive change so every single body can enjoy the benefits of fitness and sport, where the measurements of our hips are no longer the barrier to the athletic club, and someday all bodies will be viewed as capable and welcome. The good news is times are changing. We are living in extremely exciting times because now more than ever before, we have the power to change the message through social media. We now have the power to create our own images and messages on a global level through the World Wide Web, and it's happening right now. We no longer need conventional fitness magazines to show us what is possible because we see possibility every day shared through these networks. And even conventional fitness magazines are starting to get with the program, with plus-size women breaking ground on the cover of Sports Illustrated and Women's Running Magazine. We are redefining what it means to be a yogi, a runner, and an athlete. But let's not stop there. We need to bring the same awareness to our youth around size diversity. I want to live in a world where our youth doesn't have to struggle like I did trying to find themselves out in the media landscape. I want them to be able to look out to the highly influential media and see a depiction of themselves in a diverse range of sizes in healthy, positive roles. Did you know that by the time a girl hits adolescence, there are 6 times as many boys playing sports than there are girls? It has been said that girls experience a crisis in confidence, often backing away from the sports that they once loved. And for some of these girls, it can take decades before they make their way back to finding their inner athlete. Not only that, how we speak about ourselves becomes the gospel to young, watchful eyes. To every parent, coach, aunt, and uncle, we need to massage the mental muscle of our youth so that they can grow up believing in themselves no matter their size, and they can learn to feel the power of their bodies and live their limitless lives. I recently interviewed Sarah. Sarah told me that her parents championed her to live her athletic dreams. They told her she was capable of anything. Her body was always regarded as positive and never a source of negativity, and this had a tremendous impact on her athletic career. This is Sarah today. Sarah is an Olympian. She is a 2-time Olympic hopeful for the Rio de Janeiro Games. She was able to marry the positive messages that she received from her parents with her talents, and this led her to the biggest athletic stage in the world. You may not be surprised, I had a similar interview with Amanda. Amanda told me that despite getting kicked off her volleyball team in high school because they didn't have a shirt that fit her, her parents championed her to live her athletic dreams and told her she was capable of anything. This is Amanda today. Amanda is also heading to her 2nd Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro. I realize that not everyone is vying for the Olympics, but the message here today is that fitness and sport is for everyone. Whether you're joining the gym, a local dance class, or starting a walking club in your neighborhood, everyone has the right to fitness, endorphins, sweat, and victory. The great Billie Jean King once said, "I want to use sports for social change." And she did. I share Miss King's vision. It's time to change our communication message so we can change the perception around what it means to be an athlete. And in doing so, we can inspire a nation to step off the sidelines. I think that is an idea worth spreading. As we pioneer a change in history, let's push to see more so we can be more. Together, let's be limitless.